Using humor to make a point is, in my opinion, a hallmark of a great comedian. However, college humor ain't what it used to be, and this recent comic is neither funny nor poignant. It's called How Men vs. Women See the World, by Alex DeStassi and Nomi Kane. The first panel is first dates. I hope she doesn't think I'm weird. I hope he doesn't want to murder me. This actually got me curious to see just how likely any particular man is to murder a woman, statistically speaking. We can calculate this if we know the total number of murders in a particular year, the percentages of male and female victims, the percentages of male and female killers, and the total adult population of men and women. By whittling down the total number of murders into just those which had female victims and male killers, and dividing that number by the adult male population, we find that any given man had about a 0.0027% chance of murdering a woman in 2010. If you calculate the probability of any given man murdering a woman across, let's say, 30 years of adult dating life, then the total risk of any given man being a woman killer is about 0.082%. Comparing these numbers to the probability that a woman will be a killer of either sex per year and across 30 years, we can see that any given man is not much more dangerous to women than any given woman is dangerous to anyone, in absolute terms. Of course, if this were some sort of clickbait news article, you'd hear about how men are twice as likely to be killers. Which is true, in the same way that dogs kill people at 6 times the rate that sharks do, about 30 per year versus 5 per year. In absolute terms, you basically don't have to worry about either of these things at all. So, speaking to the authors of this comic, do you ladies trust yourselves not to murder anyone? Good. Then you should also trust the men you date not to murder you. Now, I chose 2010 because that data was the easiest for me to find complete, and later years did have similar numbers when I could find them. I also assumed that all female victims were murdered by men, which slightly inflates the numbers of men who kill women by effectively giving men credit for some women's murders of other women. I also assumed 1 murder per person, which actually also inflates the number of male murderers because men are more likely than women to be serial or mass murderers, so I've actually implicated more men as killers than is likely the case. I also took the adult population as individuals over age 19, because the next lowest age bracket in the census data was ages 15 through 19, and I doubt that the authors of this comic were thinking about teenagers being murderers. I think it's also worth noting that while a large majority of murders are done by men, a similarly large majority of heroic life-saving acts are also done by men. Military, police, firefighters, etc. In fact, just go to YouTube or Google and search for something like everyday heroes, and you'll see that the vast majority of the people who save drowning dogs or who pull children out of danger are men. Male behavior, taken as a whole, has 2 extreme sides. But it's the positive side that feminists seem dead set on ignoring when they make these types of arguments, presumably to make men as a whole look really, really bad. They never acknowledge the fact that, statistically speaking, as a group, men are unusually heroic as compared to women. New job. Great job, Daryl. We can't wait to watch you soar up through the company. And with the woman giving the exact same presentation, great job on the little slides. You looked very cute up there. Now, of course, I'm not saying that women don't face discrimination on the basis of their sex at work, but what I am saying is that I highly suspect that the authors of this comic are the kind of people who would look for things to get offended by in their lives. I say this because I've given presentations at my job before, and afterward people have said, "You looked good up there." Now, I took that as a compliment on my speaking and presentation skills, but if I'm the kind of person who writes feminist comics for College Humor, I may interpret that same phrase as a comment on my appearance, and written panel 2 of this comic. And by the way, how non-intersectional these authors are. They actually depicted a black person being taken seriously in a business environment. I hope someone teaches them how to check their privileged outlook. Style. The man basically does nothing and the woman does a lot of things. First off, bit of a tongue-in-cheek argument here, but one idea that feminists like to sell you on is what I think is called standpoint theory, the idea that men just don't have the perspective to write about women, and, presumably the opposite would be true. Women don't have the perspective to write about men, so you gotta get a man in on this, or you're hopeless and you're not representing us and it's oppressive, blah blah blah. And I just like the fact that a comic written by 2 women presumes to know what men do to get ready in the morning. And I'll give you a hint here. This doesn't just happen. I actually have to stand in the mirror and fuck around with stuff and make sure it looks good. So, again, kind of a tongue-in-cheek argument. I don't really buy into it. It's more of a hypocrisy thing. Again, where two female authors presume to know what a man does to get ready in the morning. And in this case, I think they kind of missed the mark. But anyway, my main response to this panel is, yeah. So what? Everyone knows this. Men like what they see. Men and women have different ways of assessing good genes. Men tend to focus on the more biological phenotypes having to do with your body itself, whereas women tend to focus more on what Richard Dawkins has called extended phenotypes, more divorced from your body indicators of good genes, like your career, or financial prospects, other stuff about your life, but not strictly about your body itself. In fact, I was interested to read a study a few years ago, I'll find it and put it in the description if I can, which found that gay men were noticeably more likely to abuse steroids than straight men. And it's one of those things where as soon as you read it, you go, oh yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I was surprised to hear the title. Because gay men are trying to attract men who care more about biological phenotypes, so it makes sense that they would be more likely to abuse something that makes you look good. I mean, it's as if the world makes sense. In fact, many of you may have seen this text floating around the internet for years. Women fall in love with what they hear, men fall in love with what they see. That's why women wear makeup, and men lie. I swear, it's like these people were born yesterday. Every other argument seems to boil down to, I just don't understand how men and women think. Family. How's school and work? Are you pregnant yet? I think most people can see that this is not an apples-to-apples comparison. One is a very common, polite conversation starter, while the other would never be brought up first or in those words. However, I will say, in my last long-term relationship, many family members asked me multiple times if I was ready to marry my girlfriend, even though I had told them multiple times, no, I'm not even out of college yet. Stop asking. And I like how this question is only plausible if it's an old person asking it. I think the authors know full well that most people these days do not have that kind of mentality, so they have no choice but to reach back to a time when it was more common. And this is pretty much what the comedian Bill Burr was saying in his bit about how old people will accidentally or intentionally say racist things and get called out for it. He says, you know what their real crime was? They lived too long.
Dude, his parents were part of the generation that finished off the genocide of the Native Americans, all right? That's who taught him his ABCs. You know, A, B, C, D, E. Hey, get that savage off my property! Get out of here! I thought we killed all you people! Put a fence around them! H-I-J. Yeah. What'd you think was gonna happen?
Traveling. Hey dude, wait, a girl on the street is checking me out. Better catch up in case she wants my number. Hey, I'm walking home from the bar. Wait, this guy behind me is waving me down. Please stay on the phone. Okay, so men view the world like retards. Good to know. Incidentally though, I know I'm not the only man who looks behind him when he's walking alone at night. Men just aren't fear-mongered into making a big deal out of it. And finally, birth control. Men's birth control. Free condoms. Women's birth control. Free pills. If you get permission from your doctor, your insurance, your local government, and fight off this robot in under a minute. This panel was so wrong, I actually had a hard time deciding where to start. Let's see, first point, there are also female condoms, and you don't need a doctor's note or anything to get them, just like male condoms. And I will bet you everything I own that once male hormonal birth control comes out, it will not be given out for free, and you will need a doctor's permission to use it. Second point, male condoms happen to be the cheapest, smallest, quickest to put on, last-minute contraceptive that's still very effective. That's why student health centers choose them as the free contraceptive item. Imagine if student health centers had bowls of female hormonal birth control for free. Alright, so we're two students here at a party, and let's have sex. Now don't worry, I snagged something from the student health center. So I'm gonna need you to start taking these 7 days ago. Is that cool? Alright, let's reconvene in 7 days. Third point, and probably the most obvious one, which is, women are allowed to take these free condoms too. You know that, right? Male contraception is not just for men's benefit. Its ultimate purpose is to keep women from getting pregnant, and to reduce the risk of transmitting disease both ways. The authors have written this panel as if male condoms only help men, and women are still completely vulnerable unless they have their own thing. In most ways, contraception of any kind benefits both sexes. Fourth point, kind of building off the third point, condoms are actually uniquely suited to both sexes' interests, not just for the contraception itself, but because condoms are an equal disclosure form of protection. Both the man and the woman can see the condom and know that it's doing its job. This is as opposed to female hormonal birth control, where only the woman knows if it's working. In this way, it's completely fair to make male condoms the default free contraceptive, because men and women can be assured that it's being used. I mean, in practical terms, the only thing that makes something men's birth control versus women's birth control is who is in control of using it. Women and men are, roughly, in equal control of condoms. Not so with the pill. If schools were giving out hormonal birth control only for women or only for men, that would not be as fair or as convenient or as cheap as condoms. Hence, condoms. This final panel of this comic is just so poorly thought out on so many levels, it boggles my mind. Let's recap. Female condoms exist and are easy to get. Male hormonal birth control will not be free either. Condoms are small, cheap, fast, easy, and effective. Women can take those free condoms too. Women benefit from those free condoms too, and both parties can know if a condom is being used correctly. Most people would have to make a conscious effort to be this ignorant, but not these authors at College Humor. It just comes naturally.